All right, yeah, welcome back. Today we're going to do Unit 4, Day 10. So some reminders before we get started. Make sure you have your history notebook out and that you're taking notes as you move through the video. Make sure that you complete the vocabulary for this video as well. So let's go ahead and get started. So our terms for today are going to be total war, comfort women, Holocaust, NGO, United Nations, the Nuremberg Trials, and the final solution. Concepts, we're going to talk about why the Allies won World War II, home front during World War II, and post World War II diplomacy. So I want to start with this concept known as total war. Now, what is total war? Total war is the mobilization of all aspects of society in order to win. Um, Most of the people involved in the conflict are going to use this. The biggest one you can kind of look at is the United States. That they use every aspect of their economy and all their production to win. Car factories go from making cars to jeeps and tanks, and plane companies that made commercial planes start making jets and fighter planes and everything they need to win. This is when they introduce rationing. Now, in World War One, there were kind of like voluntary rationing, and there was kind of like, like whatever rationing. And then World War Two, it's you have rations. We're gonna ration meat. We're gonna ration sugar. We're gonna ration everything needed for soldiers to eat food in the battlefield. You grow your own stuff in victory gardens. You have a ration book. You can get a certain amount per sugar, all of that, right? This is one of those where everyone is involved in the fight to win. Also, this time, with everybody being involved in the war fight, this is when scientists become an integral part of war, and they will stay an integral part of war all the way to the present modern day. During this time, we're going to get rockets, jet fighters, radar, atomic bombs, super weapons, better submarines. We're going to get, rockets. We're going to get intercontinental ballistic missiles. We're going to get all of those big, scary super weapons and big weapons and technology that is still vital for warfare today. I have a chart here that shows the growth of GDP, which is gross domestic product, which is how much money a country makes in a year. And by the end of World War II, the United States doubles its GDP, or almost doubles its GDP. And they become the biggest economy on the planet right after World War II. Right? I have a map here showing the Allies in black, and I have the Axis nations in red, and the kind of lightish pinkish in Europe and places are Axis-controlled territory. The biggest one you need to look at, Russia, United States. Those are going to be the two big dudes on the block. So let's talk about the home front. The home front is you're not on the battlefield, you're at home. That's the home front. So Germany, Japan are going to exploit their conquered states and peoples. They're going to use a lot of slave labor conscripted from conquered populations to work in factories. So Japan, for instance, will use Chinese and Koreans and Taiwanese. German will use French, Polish, Jews, Gypsies, anybody in a concentration camp to work as slaves in factories and farms and things. Now, nobody likes to be enslaved. Nobody likes to be taken advantage of. So there's going to be resistance. We have active resistance. This is those resistance groups, fighters, anything along those lines. They're going to sabotage, assaults, assassinations. These are kind of those active roles against your oppressors. Then we have passive resistance as well. This is intelligence gathering, refusing to submit, sabotage, kind of breaking some stuff when you're making it, making sure that every third bullet doesn't work, things like that. Those are passive resistances. Now, in conflict, you're not going to kill every soldier. You're going to have people who surrender, soldiers who surrender. It's just a fact of war. Now, Western allies, the French, the British, the Americans, they're going to treat their POWs, prisoners of war, fairly well. Russians, Germans, Japanese, they do not. There's executions, experimentation, slave labor, starvation. Once again, cruel science experiments. They do not treat their POWs well at all. Now, the United States, not so great either. They're going to detain roughly 150,000 people of Japanese descent, so Japanese Americans, whether or not they were citizens or not, so they were detained in internment camps, which is basically a nice way of saying a concentration camp. But we're not executing. They weren't executing anybody, as far as I know, right? But they were kind of camped away to alleviate the chances of rebellion or inter country conflict. Now, when I say total war, I mean total war. Women, minorities, children, even everybody's working in the factory. So in minorities, Germany will utilize racially acceptable minorities in their army. So if you were Polish or Czechoslovakian or French, but you can fight in the army. The Russians, Japanese, Chinese, they're going to mobilize everybody. Whether or not it's regardless of race, ethnicity, and for the Russians, even gender, they're not. Can you carry a gun and fire it? Here you go. So it's one of those where everyone's involved. Japan will enlist other ethnic groups, but will mistreat them. They'll be like cannon fodder. You go first. Here's a gun with no bullets in it, right? Just kind of send them out. Now, the United States and African Americans, again, there's still a lot of segregation. There's still a lot of racism. There hasn't been the second civil rights movement yet, so there's a lot of this segregation. So African Americans are often given low menial jobs, and then soldiers are segregated from white troops. The British and French will mobilize their entire empires and all of the citizens there involved in the war. So Britain will mobilize India, Australia, Canada. Everyone's going to fight in the war. Now, for women, women in the war, the kind of motto, it's a woman's war too. If we look over to the right, you can see Rosie the Riveter. She's kind of the poster child of kind of women in the workforce. If this is kind of so, if a man can do it, a woman can do it better. Now, over 500,000 British and 350,000 American women will join auxiliary services, meaning that they will join the military, but they'll be working as nurses, mechanics, secretaries, paper filers, anything like that. So that'll free up kind of men's roles previously to go fight in the conflict. Now, Soviet and Chinese women will actually take up arms and join resistance groups. One of the most deadly snipers in history was a female Soviet sniper. And due to all of this, their social roles will change dramatically during the war period. By taking jobs, since the man or husband is out of the home, they had the families, women gain more independence and confidence. That'll change and come the 50s and 60s, but for right now, we have a lot of more confidence, more power. Now, there is a big negative impact, a negative thing that happens in World War II, especially in the Pacific Theater. This is going to be comfort women. So the Japanese armies, during the course of the war, will recruit over 300,000 to 500,000 women to serve in military brothels, basically become prostitutes. 80% of those women will come from Korea, others from Chinese and other Philippines and conquered areas. The Japanese have still not apologized to that, I believe even to today. So it's and many of these women cannot live with the shame of that. Many of the women get STDs. Many women get abused, either sexually or physically, and it's an awful kind of aspect of the war that doesn't really get talked about all that much. All right, so now let's move on to Holocaust. Now, the overarching big Holocaust is in World War II is going to be the extermination of the Jews, but it's not the first Holocaust in World War in 20th century. The first one will be the Armenian Holocaust, where 1.5 million Armenians, for the support of the Russians in World War I because they were Christian, will be executed by the Armenians. Then we have the Nazi Holocaust, right? Where, we talked about Germany and their anti-Semitism before. Again, at the start, it's kind of like, hey, just leave, just immigration, where you like leave, right? But when Nazis started taking over Europe, more Jews came under their control. And the Nazis come up with what is known as the final solution, which is the slaughter of all Jews, gypsies, and undesirables. Undesirables meaning homosexuals, the mentally ill, um, Soviet war prisoners, POWs, anybody they saw as undesirable were basically executed. Um, Now, again, people don't like to be oppressed, so there's going to be resistances. There will be uprisings in what is known in the Warsaw Ghetto, because again, Jews were segregated in the ghettos before they were shipped off. Um, Altogether, about 5.7 million Jews will perish. Roughly 6 million Jews will perish. More than 2 million Poles will die. Um, Almost 98% of all gypsies will be murdered. Hitler together will orchestrate the death of 11 to 12 million people, um, which is an astounding number. It's just a lot of people. Now, there will be other examples in the 20th century that we're going to talk about. We have democides. Now, democide is a genocide orchestrated by a government. So the Holocaust could be considered a democide. Um, but democide is going to be Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot. Stalin's going to kill anywhere from 30 to 40 million people through starvation and executions and uh, political dissidents. Mao's going to be 50 to 70 million. Pol Pot's going to be 2 million. There's also be democides in Zaire and Congo. Then we have genocides, which is based on your ethnicity, skin color, and things. So it's going to be Rwanda and the Sudan. Then we have ethnic cleansing, which is the pushing out and/or murder of a specific ethnic group. Those are going to happen in Bosnia, Kosovo, and Iraq. So again, it's one of these. It's a lot of just death and violence in the 20th century that we're going to get to. It starts off with the Armenian Holocaust and moves into the Holocaust. So we look at, here's a graph of wartime deaths. The bright yellow's in civilians and the dark red is in military casualties. Now, post 1945, war is over. This is the trying era of international cooperation. With this, we have more non-governmental organizations or NGOs. We have the Red Cross, which is going to be a humanitarian agency in 1964. We have Greenpeace in 1970, which is environment. We have Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch. Those are going to be focused on making sure that everyone's following human rights. 1945 rolls around, we get the United Nations. It's kind of a fix for League of Nations. Remember, League of Nations was super weak. They didn't have a military. They couldn't back anybody up. They couldn't hold anybody accountable. The United Nations has more power. They have a military. They have everything, and they're really going to create or attempt to create more kind of peace. It doesn't work always, but they try. So with that, they're going to create the ECOSOC, which is the Environmental Society. You have the UN Commission of Refugees and the World Health Organization. This is more successful in health and educational goals, eradication of smallpox, decrease in child mortality, increase female literacy, all of that. Human rights, more of an ancient concept, which gaining wider acceptance. And then, of course, the violation of human rights can lead to trial. Now, after the course of the war, we get trials for these kind of Nazi leadership. Now, the main Nazi leadership, Hitler, Goebbels, some of these people killed themselves. So you can't really try them, but they do try any surviving Nazi leadership with concept of crimes against humanity. Now, they create a permanent court that sits in The Hague. This is for war crimes. And the UN will have a Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which forbids slavery, torture, discrimination, guarantees basic human rights and freedoms. They do attempt to uphold that, but it's hard to police the world. So, but that's all I have for you today. If you guys have any questions, please ask in class, and I'll see you guys in class. All right, bye.